Anthropic just dropped Claude Opus 5 with intelligence nearing their top model Claude Fable 5 at half the price, but with a twist, because Anthropic is also calling this their most aligned model ever, and yet it's the one they're being the most careful with on cybersecurity. So why would the safest model also be the one they're holding back the hardest? Today on AI News, we're showing you the best Opus 5 creations while we break down exactly where it beats the competition, where Anthropic is admitting they're holding it back on purpose, and whether it's actually worth switching to. So let's get into it. Right out of the gate, Opus 5 is taking over two huge roles for Anthropic. It's now the new default model on Claude Max, and it's the strongest model available on Claude Pro. In fact, Anthropic is calling it a thoughtful and proactive model that's built for everyday use, not just for the occasional heavy lifting tasks, and the numbers back it up. It's state-of-the-art on two major benchmark suites, FrontierBench for coding and GDP-Val AA for knowledge work. There's one asterisk though, and Anthropic put it right in the announcement themselves. It's still behind their most restricted model Mythos 5 on cybersecurity tasks, but before we get into that, let's look at what Opus 5 can do in the real world. This is a zero-shot bowl stacking task with a 6 degree of freedom robot arm. And they also told it to put a fork in a bowl, again zero shot, both of which tasks were successful on the first try, which is impressive because LLMs aren't trained for robots, but Opus 5 still figured it out. But now let's get into the cost while we show you what Opus 5 can do in CAD and the 3D world. So price is unchanged from the previous Opus model, $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens, the same as Opus 4.8. But look at what you get for that price now. On FrontierBench version 0.1, Opus 5 more than doubles Opus 4.8 score, and it does so at a lower cost per task, not a higher one. And on CursorBench 3.2 running at max effort, Opus 5 lands within 0.5% of Fable 5's peak score. In fact, Fable 5 is Anthropic's most expensive, most capable model, but Opus 5 is getting almost the exact same result for half the cost per task. And there's also this new thing called effort setting. Think of it like a dial that you can turn between fast and cheap and slow and maximal. And across high, extra high, and max effort, Opus 5 is beating the competition at every point on that dial. But getting 99.5% on your flagship model's coding score for half the price sounds almost too good to be true. So let's pressure test that against real reasoning and agentic benchmarks, not just coding. On ARC-AGI 3, that's the benchmark specifically designed to test novel problem solving, the stuff a model can't just memorize its way through, Opus 5 scores 3 times higher than the next best model. 3 times. On Zapier's AutomationBench, which tests whether a model can complete real business tasks start to finish, Opus 5 gets roughly 1.5 times the pass rate of the next best model at the same cost. And even on its cheapest effort setting, it still beats every other model's best result. And on OSWorld 2.0, a benchmark where the model actually has to operate a computer like a human would, Opus 5 outperforms every other model at every price point. It even beats Fable 5's best result while costing just over 1/3 as much. It's also the new state-of-the-art on GDP-Val AA version 2, on HLE, and on Deep Search QA. And now, let's check out Opus 5 and Fable 5 side by side with other frontier models and tell us in the comments which one you think is better. Because while everyone's excited about the capability jump, Anthropic also tested for risk, and the results were shocking. Here's why. During pre-deployment testing, Anthropic's automated behavioral audit found Opus 5 to be their most aligned model to date, beating Opus 4.8, Sonnet 5, and even Fable 5, showing the lowest rate of deceptive behavior of any recent Claude model, plus it's the least susceptible to being tricked into misuse. In fact, on Anthropic's overall misaligned behavioral score, Opus 5 comes in at a 2.3, the lowest score, meaning the best, of any of their recent models. And they're also calling it their safest model yet when it comes to avoiding reckless actions that could have hard to reverse side effects. So Opus 5 is safer, but aligned and not capable of doing harm are two very different things. Numbers are great though, but benchmarks can be gamed, right? So let's talk about what happens when you actually let this thing loose on a messy, real-world problem with no instructions. Anthropic gave 3 examples in their announcement, and one of them is genuinely wild. But because there's no video of the following examples, here's what Opus 5 did with aerodynamics and a 3D interactive breakdown while you listen. So in the first example, Anthropic gave Opus 5 a photo of a machine part and asked it to rebuild that part from a 3D CAD model, but with a catch, because they deliberately gave it no way to actually see the image directly. So what did it do? Opus 5 wrote its own computer vision pipeline from scratch to pull the geometry out of the raw pixels itself. And then it used that to reconstruct the full part. It did this successfully, repeatedly, and no competing model given the same setup could solve this, not even once in 5 attempts. Then, in the second example, when given a real bug in a popular open source package manager, Opus 5 found the actual root cause and fixed an edge case that a human community's own patch had missed. Meanwhile, when other models were given the same bug, they just patched the surface symptom and reported it as fixed. And in the third example, Opus 5 was asked to build a live market data feed for a brand new exchange in a single session. Mind you, previous models couldn't complete this task at all, even with detailed plans from the engineer. But Opus 5 did something incredible. When there was no live feed available to test against, Opus 5 built its own test harness just to verify that its own code was parsing the exchange's data correctly. That's basically an AI writing its own quality assurance process because nobody gave it one. So here's where Anthropic is drawing a hard line, and it's the most nuanced part of the entire release. Opus 5 doesn't advance the frontier on risky dual-use capabilities. Instead, it remains behind Mythos 5, Anthropic's most tightly controlled model, on both biology research and offensive cybersecurity. Here's the most interesting detail. On a benchmark called OSS Fuzz, which tests the model's ability to find and exploit software vulnerabilities, Opus 5 is nearly as good as Mythos 5 at finding those vulnerabilities, but it's far behind Mythos 5 at actually exploiting them. This is because Anthropic has intentionally chosen not to train Opus 5 on cyber tasks. And there are real guardrails backing this up. Opus 5's cyber classifiers are less restrictive than Fable 5's, with Anthropic estimating they'll intervene about 85% less often. And Opus 5 is allowed to find vulnerabilities in the source code, but it's blocked from binary-based vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, and exploit generation. But vetted researchers and enterprises can get expanded access through what Anthropic calls their cyber verification program. And when it comes to life sciences evaluation, Opus 5 is a step over Opus 4.8. The biggest jumps were on organic chemistry tasks, scoring 10.2 percentage points higher than Opus 4.8. And on protein-related tasks, like predicting how sequence variations affect a protein's function, it's up 7.7 percentage points. And it's live today on every platform with 2 new beta features shipping alongside it. First, mid-conversation tool changes. Developers can now swap which tools Claude has access to mid-conversation without blowing up their prompt cache. Second, automatic fallbacks. Flagged requests can now automatically route to another model instead of just hard refusing. So API traffic doesn't just stop dead when it hits a safety flag. And consistent with prior Opus models, there's no data retention requirement for general access. So is Opus 5 worth the cost? Tell us in the comments how fast it's eaten through your token budget and what you've been able to accomplish with it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the latest in AI and robotics news. And thanks for watching.